Okay, good morning. I hope you had a good evening yesterday and today you are feeling good and fresh. I don't know how you like the rain outside, but we are so a hospital in Lithuania. We want to show you everything we have, and sun and heat and rain, and during winter we even have snow, and so we are very rich in Lithuania. We have all conditions of weather here. And okay, today is the second day, and the topics for today are security, security for and by DNS, and we will have four presentations about actually maybe even six presentations because it's one presentation consists of three from all the Baltic states, from Lithuania, Latvia and Estonia. And at the end, after the coffee break, we have panel discussion about security. And I want to invite first presenter, Ulrich Wisser from ICANN, and to present all the issues about security. Yeah.
Oh,
Please state yours.
Okay. Good morning, everybody. Yes, so security of and by DNS. Yes, so for all of you that don't know me, my name is Ulrich Wisser. I work for ICANN. And for all of you that do know me, yes, I work for ICANN. I don't work for .se any longer. And with that, let's get started. Yes, so security by DNS. So the DNS is used on the internet quite widely, you could say, for everything. And especially there's a lot of applications that build their security on DNS. And the first one you probably all are thinking of is email. Yes, email security basically is DNS. And so how does email do this? Well, the biggest problem is spam. And how do we fight spam? We have SPF records, we have DKIM records, and we have DMARC records. And well, SPF and DKIM actually tells you if a sender is allowed to send an email, and DMARC helps you to know if anybody is using your email for spam. So really helpful, but it obviously builds on the security of your DNS. Otherwise, this is useless. And but that is not everything, because email has a big problem, and that is if two mail servers connect to each other, they always talk in clear text. There's no encryption. And then first after the first connection, they talk to each other, and then they will say, "Oh, let's encrypt all this stuff here. It's actually privacy." And but somebody on the way could actually disturb this talk and say, and then your two email servers don't agree on encryption, and they send the email in clear text. And Dane solved this problem, because then you can know beforehand that encryption is possible, and if the server would say we can't encrypt, then you know something isn't doing well. And now if you think that, well, Ulrich, that sounds like a conspiracy theory, I agree. Why would somebody on the way of your traffic just do something very fishy to this? But actually this has happened. One of the biggest mobile operators in the US has done this to all users of their network, and has disturbed this protocol connection so that all the emails will be sent in clear text, allegedly to protect their user from viruses. It's your decision if you believe that. So this is not a theoretical threat, this is happening on the net. Yes, and with that we come to privacy. Yes, so how is privacy done on the internet? Well, usually by TLS, transport layer security. And transport layer security, how that How does that work? Well, usually you have a certificate. You connect to a server, and the server shows you a certificate, and the certificate proves that you're talking to who you want to talk to. They are who they say they are. And, how do we do this? Yeah, 50% of all certificates are issued by Let's Encrypt. And how do Let's Encrypt verify certificates? By the DNS. So basically, your DNS security tells you if your certificates are secure. And oh, DNS, I'm I'm a slide behind here. So, but our certificate system has a lot more problems, and one of those is that we have a huge number of certificate authorities. I think right now it's probably about 300 or something, and you probably don't want to trust all of them, but your browser does. And the problem is that every certificate authority can issue a certificate for every domain, even if you don't use them and you don't like them. So how do you designate a specific certificate authority for your domain? Well, you have a CAA record in the DNS that says only Let's Encrypt or only some other entity can issue certificates for my domains. And so you see that even a lot of those stuff that we're already using builds on the DNS. But there's more to come. And I mean, one of the things that we have been hearing the last 10 years is Internet of Things. And in Internet of Things, you have this problem that there's a million devices, and you somehow need to know who you're talking to, and if these devices that send data to you are really who they claim they are. And so there is a lot of work done in the IETF, DAN records, again, DNS. You put the public key of all these devices in the DNS, and then everybody can verify. And that is, why would you do this in the DNS? If you have your devices, you can put it in a database, right? But maybe you want to share this data publicly. And then everybody can verify it because it's in the DNS. So this is so DAN for IoT is a solution to be able to verify IoT data not only in your organization but in the public. Yes, and then we have two more examples, digital identities, and here we're talking not only about people, but we're talking about machines, stuff like that. So there's this research, it's not research any longer, it's more engineering already, from the Fraunhofer Institute in Germany, and they have this train trust management infrastructure, and what they do is they bind together different trust mechanisms, and they do this through DNSSEC. And it is used, for example, in the Gaia X, the European Cloud Initiative. And you see all their partners here. There's healthcare and traffic and stuff. So it's a very interesting initiative. If you're more interested, look it up. But they're using DNSSEC to secure trust in identities. And my last example is a standardized DNSSEC signed attestation for sport. And what does that do? Well, if you ever have seen an advertisement where some very famous sports person advocates for some obscure blockchain or some, get-rich-quick scheme. We all know that it's fake advertising, but not everybody knows that. And the strange thing is, why don't Facebook and YouTube know that? And so, but they don't have some automated way to check. And so what .sport is trying to do here is to build a system of a chain of trust, so that, for example, YouTube could automatically verify an advertiser and say, well, this is really an organization that is in the sports certified by, the Olympic Committee or whoever is, responsible for that kind of organization. And so you can, through the DNS, get a trust that your advertiser is really who they claim they are, and that they are allowed to do that kind of advertising. So that were my examples for why you would like to secure your DNS. And so let's see what we can do to secure our DNS. Well, and so when we look at the DNS, what people usually think of is that you have some client and they send some queries, and you have resolvers, and you have authoritative name servers, and that's what we think of DNS infrastructure. But unfortunately, there's not the whole picture. There's a lot more to the DNS world. And yes, we have this stub and recursive and authoritative, but then we have registries, and we have registrars, and we have resellers, and we have registrants, and all in these places you can actually attack the DNS. And yes, so what can we do? We can, something that has been talked a lot about is encryption. On the last mile there, DOT, DNS over HTTP, DNS over TLS. Yeah, that is somehow solving privacy. Then we have, of course, DNSSEC that secures our data between the resolver and the authoritative. Then we have DDoS attacks, and we have a lot of ways to mitigate DDoS attacks. We have aggressive NSEC, DNS cookies, rate limiting, and of course DDoS mitigation services. And then we also have on the registrar, this side, there's a lot of stuff that we can do, and a lot of it is that you use the right passwords, secure your servers, stuff like that that everybody needs to do always if you are connected to the internet. But there's also, I would like to point out the registry log. So if you have domains that you think are important and your registry is offering it, use registry log. It, well, without, bashing on registrars or anybody, because I think most of them doing a really good job, but registry makes it, even if I take over the registrant's clients, I have a really hard time to change the domain name because it's locked, basically. So, and I think that is a very good protection. So, does that count down? Oh, so let's see. What more? Yes. So yes, and then I have well, DNSSEC obviously is very important to secure the DNS. We have talked about it a lot in all of the domain world, and as you can see, it is spreading. Most of the countries are now signed. All the ccTLDs are signed because they have contract with ICANN, and ICANN requires them to sign. So they're all signed. But obviously the ccTLDs don't have a contract with ICANN, and so they are more free in what they do. But most of them have opted to support DNSSEC. And what this picture shows you is, well, the dark green ones have operational DNSSEC, which means you can actually delegate trust to the second level domains. And then we have these, the blue ones, which are actually, which have automated DNSSEC, where we have automated scanning for CDS and CDNS key records, which makes it a lot easier to administrate DNSSEC because you don't have to do all the manual syncing between the parent and the child zone. Yes, and but if you have DNSSEC signing, which is, I mean, the first step in all of this, then obviously you need validation. And unfortunately, as you see, this picture isn't as green as the last one. There is countries that have a very high number percentage of validation for various reasons. If I point out Iceland, for example, the reason that Iceland has a really high number of validation, like 98% or something, is they have 2 ISPs on the island, and they both validate. So most countries have more than 2 ISPs, and then it gets a little bit more messy to get everybody on board. But there is other examples. If you look at Sweden, who were the first country to be DNSSEC signed, they have been validating for a very long time, and Finland, not as long, but they had their telecom regulator had a really successful campaign. It got actually picked up by the largest newspaper in Finland, and then suddenly everybody in Finland started to validate. It was a really good success, Bill. Yes, so well then let's see if this works. Yeah, we are here, unfortunately, in an orange country. So we have work to do, and well, if you want ICANN to help, we're here. Yes, and I think that was my conclusion. So I hope you have questions. Yeah, please. Sorry?
How you assemble this data?
This, yes. So this, no.
How you do it?
Yeah.
What tools?
Yeah. So this map is done by the George Mason University. It used to be done by ISOC, but it has now moved to George Mason University. And this is just the countries report themselves as, and then this map is from the Asia Pacific Network Information Center, APNIC, and they do measurements. And what they do is they have a lot of Google advertisements. And when the Google advertisement comes up on your screen already, you don't have to click on anything. Just when it comes up on your screen, there is a little stuff in the background that is running, and they will measure if you're validating. They measure a lot of stuff. They measure if they have measurements for IPv6. They have so there's but that is how they do it, and that is how they get spreading over all the countries and all the networks and stuff like that. So yes, so that's where that is coming from. Yeah. Well, if there's no more question, then I say thank you very much.
And now I want to invite Georgia Osborn from DNS Research Federation to talk about ccTLDs and DNS abuse.
Thank you so much. For those who were looking at the agenda earlier, you might see the name Emily Taylor. I'm not Emily Taylor, unfortunately. I'm Georgia Osborn. I'm Senior Research Analyst at the DNS Research Federation and also Oxford Information Labs. And I also lead up an academic engagement as well. So if you're interested in that, let me know. I'm just going to see if I can use this thing. Yes. Okay, so I'm just going to give you a bit of background on what this study is. So if you look at this title, The Habits of Excellence, why are European ccTLD abuse rates so low? So this study was originally done, and it was commissioned by ICANN BC in 2023, so that's last year, by Emily Taylor, Alex Deacon, and Nathan Allen. And it was basically to see to what extent the data quality practices of EU ccTLDs demonstrate effective practices within the industry. So you will hear a lot today around technology of securing the DNS and a lot of the technological parts of it. I'm here to talk about the policy, how the policy can impact the security of the DNS, particularly with ccTLDs, which we heard earlier, sort of do their own thing. So why are the abuse rates so low? So I will give you a little bit of background as to why we were looking at this. It's quite a long little bit of background, so excuse me for the NIS2 directive explanations, which I'm sure you're all very bored of and familiar with at this point. But for more than 2 decades, the multi-stakeholder policy debates within ICANN surrounded the publication of registration data on WHOIS. It's remained unresolved. And when EU privacy law, the GDPR, led to the WHOIS going dark, even though ICANN contracts required publication of registration data, it was clear there was a lack of legal obligation in EU legislation to mandate the collection, maintenance, and publication of WHOIS data. So the European Union in 2022 ratified the NIS2 directive, or NIS2, whichever you prefer, and it seeks to bridge the gap by imposing legal obligations on the domain name registries and registrars to collect, maintain, make publicly available and verify domain name registration data in line with best practices in the industry. The European ccTLDs, or country code top-level domain registries as a group, have strikingly low levels of domain name abuse. So we wanted to look at why that was. And all of this was associated with spam, phishing, and malware. So the team attempted to answer this question, looking at comparative abuse rates across the ecosystem. We looked at market share, and we tried to understand the impact that these practices that we were seeing, which were very, very diverse. So I'm just going to go into the sources and the methods so that you have a bit of understanding, but I'm here to answer some questions as well. So we use the DAP.live, the DNS analytics platform from our team that they've developed, and they obtain the data and the research necessary to understand the levels of abuse around different TLD types, such as EU ccTLDs, gTLDs, which would be the new gTLDs, and the legacy gTLDs as well. And the data that was used to perform the research was a combination of zone file data for the gTLDs and domain tools for understanding ccTLD registration numbers. It is quite hard to get ccTLD registration figures directly in some cases, so we wanted to have a consistent figure across the board from as few providers as possible. And the abuse data itself was from, you can sort of see up there, OpenFish, APWG, UL House, and Spam House, and that was sort of where we got the data from. And we wanted to count the distinct domain names found, as we wanted to compare apples to apples. Often we have this debate around abuse, and it's difficult to know where they're coming from, and we wanted just to compare the apples with other apples rather than apples with pears. So, and also the data that we used was specifically from 2022 in January to the end of 2022 in December. So I will show you a more updated slide of abuse later on, but this will be just on the study, as I think it's still relevant. And there's a unique context for the European ccTLDs. So I think that's important to note when looking at why the abuse rates are so low in this block. So you're dealing with the continent of Europe, one of the largest trading blocs in the world. You've got balanced economies that adopted the internet early with robust institutions there. A lot of them are G7 members and OECD countries, so you've got a lot of registrations. And the ccTLD market is very vibrant. 15% is 15% of the global market share, and also a vast majority are non-profits as well, and it ranges between private sector and public sector. And so often the genesis of ccTLD might be within a university or some other public sector institution. Some have maybe spun out as private companies, but a vast majority, don't have necessarily a profit incentive. But there are obviously other quality markers, high renewal rates, large domestic market shares, and there's also been a lot of analysis on web content, and the web content in a lot of the European ccTLDs is what we call developed. So in other words, they're not, parking pages or, pages that aren't being used for anything. They're real sites being used by real organizations. So we're going to have a look at some of the results now. What do we find? We found that the global abuse rate from them is 0.5%. And we really tracked quite closely the contracted parties, or the ICANN definition of DNS abuse, which goes down to the individual domain name and also restricts to botnet, spam, and malware. But we did not look at botnets. I think that's important to note. So we just included spam. So I'm just highlighting that here for those of you who have questions about that. So the definition of spam, you know that it's just a carrier of the nasty stuff. Of course, the abuse lists that we were using don't really say what type of spam is included and whether it's actually within the definition or not. One of the things that we were hoping to do is to provide views that you can just sort of filter down and eliminate it. But it does seem on average a really low figure. And Alex Deacon, one of the authors of this research, wrote a blog last year about measurement and how you can measure different things and come out with different answers. We're not sort of saying this is the right way to do it. I think it's really important to show that there are different ways of measuring abuse, and that it's not one thing isn't necessarily right, but it might be right for that purpose. So I think that's important to note. But I mean, the headline figure is that EU ccTLDs are far below the average figure, below being good. So the EU ccTLD abuse rates are the lowest of any TLD within the global market, and that's an uncontroversial finding. It matches with the European Commission study that was published in 2022, but it is quite striking how far below the EU ccTLDs are. And you can see, if you look at the in terms of the market share, about 15% of market share belonging to the EU ccTLDs. And then on this next slide, you can see, so that's sort of 2-3% of the abuse rates. Hold on, yeah. And while the abuse rates for the other ccTLDs and legacy gTLDs are more or less in line with their market share, it is actually what you would expect coming to the data without any assumptions. You do see that the new gTLDs provide a greater contribution to the global rates of abuse compared to their market share. And just to note as well, this was in the study, so this is a year old now. I will be showing you some updated data. So this shows that, .dk for Denmark is up in front, followed by Czech Republic and Belgium, all of them falling behind the global average, which is around 0.5%. And this is taken from our website. And so we have a series of TLD league tables using the same method that we've described. This was taken yesterday. It's a screenshot taken of the Northern Europe. You can see the Baltic states here. Lithuania quite high up there. Denmark still ahead of everyone in that slide there. So what about the anti-abuse measures? As a group, it is strikingly low levels of abuse. It's important to understand what habits, or if there's any particular behaviour that is bringing or driving forward the low levels of abuse, and if we can identify them, what are they? We used a lot of this study made from Centre, which was an excellent study, which I encourage you all to read, and I can give you the source later on to help with this. And this looked at different measures from ccTLDs. So I won't go into every single point here, but the key thing that it demonstrates is that ccTLDs generally do a combination of things, and that there isn't just one specific intervention that can really make low levels of abuse with the ccTLDs. They do just a lot of different things. So the most common approach across the ones that we had data for was they make ad hoc checks. And this might usually be in response to a suspicious report, or maybe a particular suspicion, or perhaps in their own inquiries something came up. So they do an ad hoc check. Another one is the use of electronic IDs or EIDs, which is also called out as a best practice, although at the time it was, I think, only 2 of them were really mentioned as being a best practice, and I think it's still early in looking at EIDs as to whether that's going to affect anything yet. but it is increasingly part of our ecosystem now. And I think it's also important to note, I sort of talked a little bit about the NIS2 directive earlier on. I think that will have a big impact on this, and also some member states are actually calling out for using EIDs within their draft legislative text. So I know Czech Republic have called out the use of EIDs as being something they want to use in their legislative text coming forward. So basically, a lot of them take ad hoc measures, and a lot of them do various measures at registration. So at different stages in the domain cycle, they do these things. And some also check with different external databases. Some take a copy of passports as well. Here you can see a little bit of a slide that was taken actually from the Centre report, and this looked at what the different, what they were doing differently. You can see that Estonia and Latvia do a lot of different mix of things over there. So you can see the ad hoc checks are quite used as something that they enforce. And what other factors? You know, it's difficult to know what factors are at play when it comes to low levels of abuse. But again, maturity of the domestic markets evolving within a data protection environment, and also the predominance of a not-for-profit model has close links to local stakeholders as well. So that's also an interesting one. And we're not really sure what happens with the new renewal rates, developed web content. It's really difficult to say. I think that's important to know that this isn't, you know, we don't know exactly the reason, but it seems to be the case for many that having a mixture and a combination of all these different practices helps the ccTLDs become the lowest block. And then finally, this just gives you a little breakdown. It shows you again that there are extremely low levels of abuse across the EU ccTLDs compared to the general, to generally the look at the TLDs combined. So I'm going to move on to my conclusions now. You know, I think we can all say that the EU ccTLD abuse rates are the lowest of any TLD block in the global market, and many take proactive measures to improve data quality. And I think the word here is proactive. There is a lot of proactivity in this space. We felt that probably the main point in this is that there are multiple approaches. They don't just do one thing, they do a lot of things. And that's key to this. And data quality is a theme that runs through their business. It's what they care about. They will adopt measures at different points in the domain lifecycle. So at the point of registration and then ad hoc checks, and then at various different points. So to achieve both high quality and low priced domains with a healthy market penetration, there seems to be a lot of proactive data checks that don't impede strong market penetration. And yeah, so this is what we think is from Aristotle, but I'm not actually sure, so I put ish there. We are what we repeatedly do. Excellence then is not an act but a habit. There's a reason why the EU ccTLD abuse rates are so low. I think it shows a lot of good habits there, perhaps some that we can be inspired from or learn from. And again, I'm still not sure if that is Aristotle, so yeah. And any questions, if you're interested, please find out more at our website. We have the league tables there as well, and I can give you the copy of the Centre study, which I all encourage you to read. Yeah, go ahead.
How do we know that it's the excellence of the EU ccTLDs and not the being bad at this of the other TLDs?
You know what, that's a great question. It's a great question. So I'm going to be slightly political when I answer you, because I think in this industry, I've noticed I'm a newcomer. My background is actually in law enforcement, so I'm the first one to point the fingers. I was actually an intelligence analyst working in counterterrorism in London. I'm the first one to do that. However, I think there's a lot that comes with incentivizing the industry and rewarding those who are obviously doing a really great job. And I think part of our thing around having a league table was to, first of all, our league table, if you just go back here, it's all the way over there, kind of looks a bit like a sports league table. We kind of wanted to make it fun and sporty and encourage good stuff coming from different ccTLDs. So yeah, I mean, it could be that there are a lot of bad players in this world, but also that there are a lot of good ones. And rather than continually saying, hey, look at them, what about them, you know, playing the blame game, we felt that this was a better way of encouraging the good and looking at the behaviors. So that's sort of what we wanted to achieve.
Thank you. You talked about that the low DNS abuse is about the combination of different things. Did you also look into the identity verification? Because in Estonia, we say that because of the low rate is the reason of the identity checks that we do. Did you also look into your research about those things?
Yes, I think that's a great point. And yeah, I mean, if you look at what Estonia has sort of implemented, I don't know where that slide was, but it was somewhere. I can't find it now. I don't know if Estonia's on there, unfortunately. Oh, yes, it is. Okay, yeah, so we sort of did a look up, but I think a lot has happened over the last year. So this was taken a year ago. I know that there has been a lot more updates to this, and I would actually personally love to do a more updated version of this. I think there's a lot to be said for looking at that particular thing, and a lot for particularly for the Baltic states, you know, what they are doing and what it means for what they, you know, their results. Yes, Clara, go ahead.
Hi, Giorgio. I'd be just very curious to know whether you looked at the different legal frameworks applicable to, you know, the ccTLDs, EU ccTLDs, GTLDs, and what is the role of that in dealing with some of these issues? Thank you.
That's a really good question. I don't actually know whether that was looked at. Emily would have done the legal side, and I would really like to take that back and sort of get some checking, because I think that would be good for the next time this presentation is done. So thank you for that, and I will take that back. Thank you.
Hello, I'm from .lv. The question is, there was a slide with abuse rate, and if you know from how it's calculated, from what data?
Yes, so how it was calculated, so I've got the slide at the very beginning with all of the different sources and methods. So this is what we did for the methodology. So we used OpenFish, APWG, abuse.ch, URL House project, and Spam House. Again, we didn't use, you know, that's the specific measurement we used. We understand that there are lots of different, first of all, lots of different definitions and lots of different measurements. And this is the particular one that we used. But again, I would like to point you to a blog. I should have put this in the presentation by Alex Deacon. Many of you might have heard, many of you might know him, and he wrote a blog just about the different measurements and how they were calculated. So if you would like to have a look at that, please do, because I don't think this won't be the definitive answer for everything. You know, this is just one measurement we used, and there are lots of valuable measurements in this space. So.
Okay, no more questions. So thank you, Georgia,
So
for a very nice presentation.
Thank you. Okay.
And now we want to invite Daiva Tamulionienė from National Cybersecurity Center of Lithuania to talk about protection of citizens online in Lithuania.
So, hello everyone. I think better to see the bigger screen than the small one. I will try to present in this short presentation the Lithuanian efforts, proactive efforts to enhance internet security and protect its citizens from online threats through the implementation of comprehensive DNS firewall system. Importance of internet security. I'm sure you all know that is very important, and we have a famous telling, and you know for sure it, that the most secure computer is which is not connected to power, locked in the safe, buried under the feet in the ground, and placed in the secret place. But nowadays we know that we are all connected, so it's increasing dependence on daily activities on the internet for the users, is rising threats from cyber criminals for targeting individuals and organizations, a need for security robust measures to protect users' personal data and privacy. So what the government of Lithuania did in the past to enhance internet security. So last year we had a change in cybersecurity law, amendment of the law, Article 13, which says that authorities using mandatory instructions and entities implementing them must use a cybersecurity information network, which processes data on mandatory instructions or binding instructions to block domain names, including websites. And another initiative was of Council of the Communication Regulation Authority made the change, and this new regulation require internet service providers and operators to immediately block access to harmful internet resources identified by the National Cybersecurity Center. So it means that National Cybersecurity Center made a platform which we named by the name Vasaris, which in Lithuania means February. Actually, it does not have any meaning, but we thought that it's a very nice name. It's Latin letters, easy to remember, and it was done in February. So it was discussion started in February, so why not to have February? Let's do February. So the basic principles of the system is usability, responsibility, speed, and I should say transparency. Usability, it means that all Lithuanian operators and internet service providers initiating sanctioned domain blocking using the one source is the system Vasaris. Responsibility, it means that ISP receive blocked domains from the system and they don't need to think, is it made initiating this blocking. They don't need to check it because it's a fact of the blocking is already on the system. So the speed, the block domain names are unavailable to users in less than 15 minutes. And transparency, it means that the blocking authorities can check and monitor. They have a dashboard who did the blocking and who not. So at least they can contact the ISP and talk about the results. So authorities which have the power to make a blocking, it's Bank of Lithuania, Gaming Control Authority under the Ministry of Finance, the Radio and Television Commission of Lithuania, State Consumer Right Protection Authority, Police Department under the Ministry of Interior, Drug, Tobacco and Alcohol Control Department, the Office of Inspector of Journalist Ethics, and National Cybersecurity Center, but we're responsible only for harmful internet resources. So benefits of domain blocking, it's user protection. Blocking harmful websites protect users from accessing malicious content, reducing the risk of phishing attacks and malware infections. It enhances safety, so domain blocking system enhance overall internet safety for Lithuanian citizens by preventing access to websites used for fraud, malware distribution, and other illegal activities. And comprehensive coverage, so the block domain names include websites used for fraud, infected websites, and resources that distribute malicious code or are blocked by a court decision. So it's harmful resources, the definition of harmful resources. How the system works, I'm sure you all know that how DNS firewall works. So we use response policy zone files where we generate the list of blocked domains, and it's integrated to ISP DNS servers. So here is a short picture which shows that if we are not using the DNS firewall, so standard recursive DNS servers like Google, Cloudflare, they are designed to accept domain requests and map them to specific IP address and redirect to internet resource, what means that user can land on the malicious website. But if we are using DNS firewall with a special function, so it's not only processes requests by directing users to necessary IP address, but first checks where the internet address is included to the list or not. So if it is on the list, the user is blocked from accessing malicious content, and it's informed about it. So every blocking authority who made a blocking request has the landing page of blocked site. So they are different, and it explains why it is blocked. So it's possible always to contact us, and if it's blocked by the error or mistake, we can do changes. This picture I took from the National Post Office, and it is actually the most affected company in Lithuania, especially in the past, with the SMSs through the mobile networks and through the phishing mails. So when we started this DNS firewall system from the 1st of May, they contacted us and said that they are very, very happy because you see the people is dancing, because it's really was much, much less these phishing emails came to the users. So we made some statistic. Average requests are blocked per day. It's around 8,000, but you can see some peaks. So it was because of the presidency election and EU elections. So here's a monitoring dashboard which can be watched by blocking authorities. They can see the ISPs who is blocking and who is not. So it's a 7 days data. And if you stop on the line, so you can see which domains are blocked, which are not. So you cannot see here, but it's not interactive. So we have another tool, which we call it a tool. It's a DNS firewall as a public service, which is free for citizens. Our charge, citizens can opt in any time and out at any time, so they can change these details in mobile phones, especially good for those who are using the Cloudflare or other public DNS services which don't have this feature, security feature. And this tool have a standard procedures like DNS protection and encryption. So the technological solution was made by Kaunas University of Technology, Internet Service Center, and National Cybersecurity Center. So challenges and solutions. So comprehensive coverage, so it means that we're ensuring that the right database is comprehensive and up-to-date to block all non-malicious domains. Public awareness, it's educating the public about the importance of using the DNS firewall just to stay safe online. And collaborative efforts, ongoing government and private sector collaboration to enhance the DNS firewall capabilities and reach. What is the future directions? So, of course, it's expansion. It is idea to try to use AI, artificial intelligence, to advance threat detection, and of course, its continuous public education campaigns and policy enhancements to ensure that the DNS firewall remains as effective tool as it is. So, thank you. I just also want to say that internet security is not a product, it's a process. So it's not enough just to fulfill some requirements and forget it. It's always continuous efforts to improve. So, thank you.
Thank you, Tana, for a very interesting presentation. It was these blocking authorities. This was very interesting feature. And do you have any numbers? How active is this journalist ethical committee to blocking these things? And have you any examples? What kind of things they are tried to block?
No, I don't have this information, but they are not very active. The most active is alcohol, tobacco, Bank of Lithuania, those who are just directly now involved into these threats and vulnerabilities.
How big is the list actually? And is the list public available?
List is big because it's not harmful resources is quite a long list, and no, it's not public because it's changed. It's always changing. So
okay. Next question. What about if someone catch this list and publicate it?
Nothing happens.
Huh?
Nothing happens. It's good.
Maybe I.
Because it's changing. It's changing. It's
Okay,
every day is changing, and it's nothing secure.
I'm working now with Russian list. It changes every 3 minutes. Okay, no problem.
Yeah, but you know, it's a protection of the citizens, just to not to reach infected sites. So it's nothing wrong if you can see the list. It's not by the purpose we are not publishing it because it's huge and long. So it's.
Hi, thanks for the presentation. I think one of your slides, it looked like some of the open resolvers like Cloudflare, OpenDNS, maybe use this list. Is that the case, or is it just the ISP resolvers?
No, it's just ISP resolvers. Just as example that for public reachable DNS servers.
And I wanted to comment that part of this list is public because every institution that issues these orders, they have this list from this institution in their web pages.
Yeah, but it's not the combined list to see in the one place. So why it's not, I mean, not public, you can find this information.
But all ISPs actually, I think, find this as a huge benefit to have one centralized point for getting RPZ zones and not just getting papers from 10 different authorities and to manual checking and to adding these records to the DNS block list. So
yes, so why of the basic principle was speed, because it's much faster and easier for everyone to read the information.
Thanks, I understand. The next technical question. What about technical issues? Sometimes, for example, someone can make a mistake and put in the list technical domain, for example, ns1.facebook.com. It's a bad example because, good example, because if you block this domain, all resources fall because very intensive traffic. Do you check this list for
Of
these
course,
issues?
it's a technological process. We have a big team of the analysts, and we put the name into the list after checking. Of course, it's not like automatical.
No more questions. So thank you, Daiva, for a very interesting presentation.
Okay, thank you.
And now I think it's almost decade for the DNSSEC in the Baltics. I think all 3 Baltic ccTLDs implemented DNSSEC more or less about a decade ago. So, and it will be 3 presentations from all ccTLDs of Baltics, and Tomas Simonaitis from .lt Registry will start. Please, Tomas.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. I will be the first to start a DNSSEC review of .lt domain. So we have enabled DNSSEC more than 10 years ago, so we definitely weren't the first TLD to do so, but also not the last. We had a DNS signing ceremony, and about a month later, ICANN already published DS records, so our zone has been fully signed and delegated, and this is the date where DNSSEC has gone live for .lt. Now, we have taken the matter rather seriously, so we had bought HSMs, we had a signing ceremony, we had a backup keys of HSMs spread in different cards, smart cards. So, of course, we had zone signing key and key signing key rollovers in place. That was mostly because there were very high hopes for DNSSEC, because usually when we think about DNS, we think that it's a protocol to convert a name to IP number. But in fact, you can put any data into the DNS, and having that signed and having a trust going all the way from the root meant that you can have many very interesting things put into the DNS and validated, trusted. So we had high hopes that after root was signed, our TLD was signed, that the ball will be rolling, and users would start signing their zones, their second-level domains. However, that didn't happen, and next 5 years were actually enthusiasts only. We had very, very little domain signed, as you see. It's not thousands, it's just a number of domains, so we haven't reached even 100 then. And I believe that was mostly because the killer application was missing. About this time, there was a DANE protocol announcement, and there was some hope that you could have a certificate in the DNSSEC, in the DNS, and you wouldn't need to buy a certificate from certificate authority, which was costly. It was about $100 at the time. However, the browsers didn't implement it fully. There was an experimental feature in Google Chrome, which was reverted later on. So I believe that the fact that there weren't a huge incentive, our enthusiasts didn't have that many domains, so we didn't go very far the first 5 years. So later on, we have decided that we have to make a bit more initiative ourselves. This meant that .lt does not support direct registrations. However, university has a registrar of its own, so it is separated from the registry. It uses EPP like the rest registrars. However, since it is based also in the university, we had a a power to enable DNSSEC on this registrar's DNS servers and for this clients. So after that, and with the help of a few other registrars, we have now a little bit steeper slope, and there is a little bit more adoption. If we would see a percentage, so the five first years, it's basically 0, and now we are at 1.4%. So definitely not a lot. Nothing to brag about, but we hope that this process will continue. And what's now we believe is important is to have more registrars to pick up the ball to start signing .lt domains. There is some initiatives I will speak later on. Now, what algorithms are used for DNSSEC and until domains? As you can see, most are elliptic curve already. So that I believe is a good thing. LT itself, since it was signed in 2013, is using RSA. We are planning to move on to elliptic curve next year or at the end of this year. This will help reducing response size of the DNS messages, and since now support for elliptic curve is not lacking anymore, much of the resolvers do already support it. There is no reason to stay using RSA anymore. Now, as far as incentives go for DNSSEC, at the start of 2024, we have decided that we need some financial incentives for the registrars. So every registrar of .lt has a discount of about 10% if he registers a domain with DNSSEC enabled. Now, this, I think, begs the question why no reduction of fee for renewals. This is mostly because we thought that rushing too fast wouldn't be okay anyway, and we would like registrars to take it to start using DNSSEC, but not do it in a rush, so that they wouldn't break their existing configurations, and then that there would be no downtime. So we expect some bigger registrars to start using these initiatives, and if you have 10,000 or more .lt domains, the price reduction is actually pretty big, and there is initiatives to do so, and we hope by the end of 2025 the bigger ones will start to sign all new domains. So and the slope of the graph will hopefully will be much better. Now, for .lt itself, like I said, we are going to change the algorithm to elliptic curve. And well, that's about it. Thank you. And if you have any questions, please do ask.
Sorry, I'm a DNS fan. Question: why DOM-REG LT not signed?
That's a very good question. We should sign it, yeah.
LRT LT not signed. Šaltibaršiai.lt nėra.
So okay, if there are no more questions, thank you, Thomas, for your presentation.
Thank you.
And now I want to invite CTO of .lv registry, Ķutts. Ivo, please.
Okay. Hello, good morning. So, decade of DNSSEC in Baltics is at a long road, and DNSSEC provides the way so that we can check if the answer of DNS has been tampered or not. And in our operations, it's a daily thing now. So, and I'd like to put it in a, not in a decade, but even step back 20 years and have it on a time scale and put here several more protocols which are also DNS security related protocols, for example, SPF and DKIM. By the way, I put them here not by the protocol proposed date or update date, but just my when I actually started to look into that protocol. So that's my time scale, kind of, and maybe how I felt industry started getting momentum on implementing a certain protocol. So, and so in 2010. Root zone was signed, and we were actively following that and monitoring, learning about this protocol. And in 2012, August, we also got signed. So we had the DS record in the root zone, and after that, we can see more security protocols are getting introduced. We can see more email protection, certificate related protections, which enable through the DNS infrastructure. Again, email securing, automation for DNSSEC, and which in this time used by other protocol, which is web TLS protocol. DNS is getting secured. So quite interesting that we see that in this time area there are quite a lot of activity for DNS security protocols, and maybe we'll see that also in other trends and statistics that activity starts about that time. So this is the data of our DNSSEC signed domains. Source is the NickLV database. And since we got DS in the root, this graph actually doesn't show up, but there are, as Thomas said, some enthusiasts putting and testing things. So first year, we don't even see movement here. Then after 2 years, we see, oh, there is a growing trend. Maybe this will happen. And during that time, we started the initiative that we offer additional 15% for registrars. So if you go, if you DNS sign your domain, you get this discount. And we thought, okay, this worked. Maybe we'll have some interesting growth in DNSSEC. But then we see 5 years in a row, growth is very slow. Nothing really happens. Then we see jump to larger registrar decided, hey, we want this discount money finally, and they sign their domains, and this you can see a drop here. One registrar decides, no, we will unsign these domains, but then they decide, okay, we'll sign them anyway, but that takes another 6 months to get back. So currently a little bit growing. I don't know what happens here, why we're declining here, but we'll see in the future. So these are data provided by domain tools, and these are domain registrations by the years, and the leader is Lithuania. So we have pretty similar trends up, which is good. And let's compare that registrations with DNSSEC signed domains, and we can see the leader is Estonia, so pretty good work here. So it's a good steep line up, and let's see other statistics, how we do in Europe and other countries. And a long time, I think Sweden was even signed before root zone, if I'm not mistaken. So they have a long history of getting things signed. But we see here, Denmark is doing really good work, and they are #1 currently, but 2023. Then Estonia, good work. Number 3, and Poland. So others need to catch up this trend. Then I wanted to show you just my thought experiment. What is it actually DNSSEC is a challenge? How we saw it in the past, that everything was scary. And then I decided, okay, I'll call it fear and challenge matrix. And everything is red. Because everything you touch probably breaks something, and there will be disaster, and probably I would have not this presentation, but the presentation about how we recovered from the disaster. But nowadays, I think it changed somehow into this, because 10 years have passed. We have some experience, complexity, maybe a little bit more complex than the average Sudoku game, but there are more tools available, more software, more references, technical references. We can all the software which is available, it's also bug fixed. So because over these 10 years we saw that there might be some issues because of the software bugs. So compatibility issues. We saw initially when DNSSEC was proposed, I think there were concerns that some older network gear or firewalls might be problematic. They wouldn't support that and something will break. I think 10 years passed. Hopefully that router is replaced, firewall is replaced with something better and understands things. So compatibility issues shouldn't be an issue at all. So performance overhead. For us it works really well. It's when we switch from RSA to elliptic curves, it will be probably even better. And we will also, by switching, it will improve also validator performance. And there were also fears about the increased attack surface because of the response, request and response asymmetrical size. Which would provide the attacker ability to send DDoS attacks, but there are lots of other protocols which provide that ability. And I think during these 10 years, we've seen that even new businesses were launched which are specialized in DDoS attack preventions, data scrubbing, and so on. So it's also not an issue not to implement DNSSEC. So. And data encryption. So in the beginning, when we were having some seminars where we tried to introduce DNSSEC, people were asking, oh, that's a great thing. Does it finally will encrypt my DNS? I said, no, it's an integrity thing. So maybe we'll figure out how to encrypt a DNS request later. And that was fixed by browser vendor initiative in 2018 when DOH was introduced in the browsers, I think, and we are going into that direction even more. So economic costs I put in a yellow line. There will always will be some economic aspects related to the security improvement, so that stays there. Then operational burden, I think that goes together with key management, all the monitoring. As I said, it's ongoing thing. We need to monitor how DNSSEC is, if it's working correctly. And the issue is low adoption rates, as we saw in the graphs. And I think it somehow relates also to the lack of immediate results. What you see, we cannot measure. If we compare, for example, with the DMARC, which protects you from the email spamming, you can see that somebody was using your domain name to spam because you receive reports. For DNSSEC, you just protect, you implement integrity, but you don't have this feedback loop. I'm just saying the problem, but I don't have the proposal for the solution of that. And also lack of user awareness. I don't know if so I'll show you on this example. You most probably saw this thing when you visit the website and something's wrong with the TLS SSL certificate. And you will either see that the certificate is not valid for this site, or in this case, cert date is invalid. So there might be multiple reasons for that, but so it's also not very user-friendly, but in the DNSSEC case, it's even more obscure or even incorrect, because I went to the DNSSEC failed.org, which is on purpose made incorrectly signed. But the result in the web browser is that if name is not resolved, so as a similar example, if we call by the phone to some relative, we know his number exists, and if operator says this number doesn't exist, which is an error, we know that there's something wrong with the operator, yeah, because we know that number exists. In the same way, there we could know that the site exists. So this is a false information. Recently, there is a new thing which is called extended DNS error, where you can see the real, you don't have just surf fail response, but you have extended information why DNSSEC failed, but this information is not yet conveyed to the user. Good question whether user needs to see that, but if you answer me why user needs to see this, then, well, I think it should be the same here. So DNSSEC users are different. Let's say I could call my system administrator, say, hey, I see this error, and he can maybe fix it, or he can call another administrator and he can fix it. But if I have this domain name not resolved, that's not correct information. And yeah, so this is open question. Maybe we can talk about that in a panel. For .lv registry, probably we'll look into the option how to get more DNSSEC signed domains by trying to forcefully sign direct registrations which are hosted on our DNS servers. So that's one way, but maybe there are some other options. Thank you.
Are there any questions?
Hi, thanks for the presentation. One comment, one question. On the comment, you talked about moving to encourage adoption of encrypted DNS. I think that's what you said. You might want to look at DNS over QUIC. People tell me that's more efficient than DNS over HTTPS. So faster responses. So you may wish to add that to your list.
Okay.
And then the question, though, you had a really interesting chart with the color-coded with the different things. There, yeah.
On this one?
That one.
Okay.
One of the things which I think is lacking at the moment in the development of the standards, there's some question marks over should DNSSEC be continued because it's sort of stalled on take-up rates. One of the challenges in the ITF, the standards body, there are virtually no operators that are active and involved in the standards development. And a comment for the others as well, it could really do with more people with practical experience of what the challenges are to actually engage so that the real operational problems are fixed, rather than people coming out with ever more complex things that you can't deploy or no one wants to take up because of the problems. So I suppose that's not really a question, but I think this is good data. You may wish to share that in the standards development bodies. Thank you. Okay, thank you.
I knew about QUIC, but I thought it's even less known, and I didn't include that. But, you think it will be running over DOT on DOH adoption?
People tell me that it's more efficient performance-wise.
But efficient is good, but then you need some industry to push it forward. Thank you.
Okay, yep. So personal opinion here, but I would say Do and Dot have totally failed what they were supposed to do. And then what they were supposed to do was to protect the user's privacy against their ISPs. And what they do today is to encrypt the traffic to the ISP and then let the ISP read it. Great. So I think what they tried to do has become a total failure, and I don't think that DNS over QUIC going to change that, because we haven't seen for that to change, we would need to change something fundamentally in DNS, and I don't see that yet. So so privacy is out of the book, and then encryption isn't going to help so much. That's just a personal opinion.
Well, it's just one layer. It's better than nothing, I think. So, and thank you.
Good morning, Ivo. Ivo, do you monitor the health of DNSSEC implementations? Thank you.
Thank you. Good question. So we monitor, of course, we monitor LV zone, DNSSEC things, error sigs, and other parameters. But we don't monitor currently other, like our second level domain. Occasionally we can do that to see if our registrars are compliant to their discount. So we don't do that automatically, but since I discovered here this drop right here, we're starting to think whether we should do more checks more regularly. And maybe it's just an issue they don't notice. By the way, there was a case where one registry wanted the discount so bad, but they probably, most of the domains were parked, so they didn't care whether it's reachable or not, but they just put, in DS record, they put all the Fs. So that would be an interesting key to get. So it's like a Bitcoin. But yeah, so, and then we said, hey, this is not a real DS. Most likely, please fix the DS. I think external observer, Victor Duconi, notified about that there is a lot of broken domains. So we looked into that, and we found that DS was static for a few domains. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, Ivo, very much for an interesting presentation. And now we're inviting Timo Võhmar from .ee, Estonian registry, to talk about Estonian DNSSEC story.
Hello. I'm head of development at .ee, and this is our journey. We have saying in Estonia that one picture is worth more than 1,000 words. So here are my 1,000+ words. Any questions? But as we have a bit of time, maybe some details. So we are pretty much exactly at 10 years today. So we started at 2014, a bit more today because it's past half point of 2024. But yes, this is where we are at today. 22, almost 23% of domains are protected by DNSSEC. 38,705 domains, to be exact. And as Ulrich mentioned in the morning, a very big part of the DNSSEC is the validation. So this is our validation rate, 67%. This is pretty much on par with Latvia at 70, and much better than Lithuania. But so the journey, we started at 2014, as I said. After the end of first year, we were at 0.2%, about 200 domains signed. At 5-year mark, we reached 2% with more than 2,000 domains signed, and today we are at 23. So I guess at this rate, in 5 years, we will be at 200%. So this is our goal. I don't know how we will reach it, but it is what it is. But yeah, how did you get this far or here? So we were actually a bit in luck to have such innovative partners in Estonia, in telcos, among registrars. So from the day one, the biggest telco, Telia, actually they are one of the biggest in Nordics, they decided to start validating, and Zone and some of our other good registrars decided to follow as well, and enabled DNSSEC as an option for signing. So this is it. So I would like to say that it was a very good and efficient work on our side, but it was, I guess, a lot of luck in there as well. Okay. So this is how we do it today. We use SHA-256. We have open zone. So we use NSEC for NX domains, signing NX domains. We use HSMs, like everyone, I guess, almost. UTM brand. But to continue, I guess, maybe a few words, what is DNSSEC, at least for me? Maybe it is something different for others. But I guess DNSSEC is for checking integrity and authenticity. So this means that we are checking that data is not altered on the way from on the transit from the DNS to the end user, and it enables verifying that the data is originating from where it's supposed to come from. So with this we protect the end user. So I would like to, the question I'm asking for myself constantly is, when thinking about DNSSEC, is who would be the registrants, who would be the domain owners that should be signing the domains to actually provide most effect or provide better value for the end users. And if you saw the graph from 2019, what happened there was our biggest registrar, Zone, decided to enable DNSSEC as opt-out. So by default, everyone registered with them were signed. So it required for them to knowingly decide that we don't want to sign to be excluded. So that's the secret behind the high number. So we can say that, okay, from that point forward, the domains that are signed are basically regular domains. Anyone that registers with Zone is signed. So the question is, the first 2,000 up to that point, who are the pioneers who decided to take the leap on their own? Are there these registrants that need to be there? Are they among them? So, as we saw the last 5 years, this is mostly the simple web pages. So the question is, are there banks? Are there financial institutions? Are there registrants that deal with sensitive personal data? Are they among these first 2,000? And the answer is no. None of them are. So I'm coming back to the beginning saying that, okay, it looks really good for us. We are in a good place. And then I put the question mark at the end. So are we really? Are we making any difference with this? Because at this point, among these 30,000 domains, basically what we are protecting the end user from is, let's say, abuse or danger from Aunt May's cooking blog. So I don't know if this is actually the way we want to be with this. Let me see. What happens now? Nothing happens. Okay. So why are we doing this? And this is a difficult question for me. I don't know. I don't have an answer for this, because we are protecting end user from spoofing, from man-in-the-middle attacks that are actually one of the most, I guess, dangerous attacks out there, because the end user has no way of knowing that they are a victim until it's too late. But all the service providers that should be worried about this have decided that, okay, DNSSEC might not be the answer here. So they are opting for other means, other measures of protecting their end users. So I'm not saying that they are not doing anything. They are just saying that, okay, we don't need DNSSEC, or there's something about DNSSEC that is maybe not worth the effort. So I don't have an answer for this. And I guess this is where I want to end this short presentation about DNSSEC in Estonia. Any questions?
We have one question from the internet, from Zoom, but I think you already answered it. The question is, I would like to hear from .ee panelists what changes they implemented in 2018 or 2019 that helped increase the DNSSEC adoption rates. So, if I remember correctly, it's one of the biggest registrars just started to DNSSEC signing.
Yeah, automatically.
They automatically the domain names.
That was a big boost.
Yeah. That's what we very expect from our biggest registrars also to jump in DNSSEC.
You need to be more friendly with the registrars, I guess.
So are there any questions more? No? Okay, then thank you, Timo, very much for your nice presentation. And now we have 15 minutes break, coffee break. So we're a little bit late in schedule, 5 minutes, but it's okay. So let's start our panel discussion at 12:20. So.